Welcome to the Life You Love podcast.
We're your hosts, Grace Lemire
and Erin Convertini.
This podcast is for the dreamers and the doers.
For the women who want to create a life they genuinely love waking up to.
We believe that life's short, so let's build one we love.
Welcome to our first monthly bonus episode. We just decided this month that we want to start doing these monthly Q&A, sort of just miscellaneous questions that we've been getting throughout the month episode. And instead of trying to put it into a Monday episode, do a bonus Friday, just end of month bonus episode for you guys. So I'm really excited about this because every time we do a Q&A that's more themed, you guys seem to really like them. So this one we literally just asked anything and everything goes. Ask us your best, juiciest questions. And we have a couple of fun ones here for this first one. But before we get into them, if you like this episode, if you like this format, if you like us doing it bonus on a Friday, definitely leave all of your comments and questions for next month's episode in Spotify. You can leave it in this episode so that we have a centralized place to pull questions from for next month. So yeah, if you like this episode, let us know on Spotify, leave us all of your questions there. But with that, we're just going to get straight into some of these questions. We have some fun ones here. The first one is really cute. How did Erin and Grace meet?
Okay, I was thinking about this. I'm I don't know if I have the story right. I'm trying to go back because this was it 2022? I think.
Yes, 2022.
It was a long time ago. I remember, I was a fan before we became friends.
That's crazy because I feel like we've just been following each other from the start.
We have. Well, okay. What I'll say, I never exhibited crazy fan behavior. I wasn't no. But I loved Erin's content. I watched Erin's content because we were the same age and we posted very similar content. We both used to only do financial education for Gen Z kind of content. So I watched your content and I was like, I like it. And then one day, I think you followed me back. And then I remember you messaging me and you were like, I'm going to, or I don't know if we messaged, I think you messaged. And
I think we were DMing back and forth.
Yeah.
A couple, we started DMing and following each other probably in the summer of 2022 and just talking here and there, but strictly through TikTok DMs. I didn't even have Grace's phone number. And in the spring of 2023, there was a conference in Cincinnati, Ohio, which Grace was living in Boston. I was living in Pittsburgh. And I randomly DM'd Grace and I was like, hey, there's this conference that I want to go to. Do you want to go with me? So we just met up in Cincinnati, Ohio and got a hotel room together and just hung out and became friends.
Yeah.
And now here we are.
But it's funny because I was trying to think back. I'm I don't think we had exchanged that many DMs at that point in time. And because I remember I was talking to friends. I'm yeah, I'm going to Cincinnati, Ohio for this thing called economy and whatever. And people were asking who I was going with. And I was we've never met in person. So I'm we're going to see how this goes. I was I don't know what will happen. And I remember it was so funny. You picked me up from, was it the hotel or the airport or something?
Yeah, I met you at the hotel because I drove.
Because you drove, and I remember this was my first time meeting you, and I got in your car, and I remember you said something about how there was dog hair everywhere because Bella usually sits in the passenger seat.
Yeah, I had to drop Bella off at my parents on the way, and my car seat is covered in dog hair, and Grace, who I don't know, just gets into my car, and then we go share a hotel room together for the weekend.
It was just so funny because we had never met, but obviously we're living in close quarters together, spending the whole weekend together. But it was so fun, and it was such a good start to
and
the
we
friendship.
Started the podcast not that long after because that was in the spring of 2023, and then in the summer of 2023, so the next time that we saw each other in person, we were in New York City for an event, and afterwards we were just grabbing a drink and we were talking about just our brands and what we want to do and everything, and we were just kind of we should collaborate on something. And then we ended up starting the podcast in November of that year. So after meeting twice in person, we started a business together.
Which is actually kind of crazy when you think about it. Cause we literally have an L. And we were yeah, we've met twice. Why not? But it's honestly worked out.
Yeah. And I do think they always say don't start a business with friends, but I think, and we definitely talked about this when we were getting into it, we were kind of the perfect level of friend to start a business together. Obviously we weren't the best of friends, no offense. We met
No, we weren't.
But we were work friends to where it was already a little bit professional because we knew each other from what we were doing professionally, to where we we kind of had more confidence going into it. It wasn't like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this girl's my best friend. I have no idea what she's like work-wise. Let's just see how it goes. But we were kind
Mm-hmm.
of like the perfect level of friend for it.
Yeah, no, I don't take any offense. I've said the same thing to other people where I'm like, it was a good level of friendship because if we had been like childhood friends, it could have been a whole nother ball game because you don't know what your childhood friend would be like. But because we both had our own independent businesses and could see how each other like ran our businesses, and I think it's worked out because then I'm not like, oh my gosh, like this could like a little
Yeah.
small thing could ruin the friendship because we're both used to having businesses and obviously like we know, you know what I mean? We know how to operate a
Yes.
business, but I also think it's been cool because we have grown as friends in that, but we're able to maintain the business professional side and the like being friends side, which is really nice though. It's a good balance. It is.
Yeah, and I also will say like this is the only thing in my professional life that I'm doing with like a business partner, and it's been really cool just to have someone with like the accountability of things. Like if I don't feel like posting a TikTok video one day because I'm not feeling the best, like I don't have to and no one's going to hold me accountable for that. But if I'm maybe not feeling like showing up talking for an hour in the podcast, like I still have to do it because someone else is counting on me, and that's gotten us so much farther in the podcast than we would have if we would have started a podcast separately, because that's something that we talked back and forth about at the beginning as well, as like, well, like would either of us start a podcast separately or should we do this together? And it's like they say 99% of podcasts don't make it past episode 20. That's literally the official stat, and we're now on episode like 96, which is so crazy. Like I never would have gotten to episode 96 without having a business partner and someone to like hold you accountable for that.
100%. Okay, question number 2. We posted these like question boxes on our stories, but like Erin said, we're going to try to centralize the questions in Spotify because it just gets chaotic when we're asking for questions like everywhere. But we both got some variation of this question, which is like a natural cycles review. And it's funny because I just got this on a question box on my story the other day too, that I just did like a non-podcast one. If you're unfamiliar, and I think this is a very important conversation for especially women in their 20s to have. I think, as we know, like women's care is severely under researched. And so I think like having these conversations is really important so we can all be more informed. But natural cycles is it's basically a fertility tracking method, but you can use it for either trying to get pregnant or preventing pregnancy. You can also use it just as like a cycle tracking app, which is like kind of how I use it, just like to know when my period is coming and, you know, tracking my period symptoms and period pain and all of those things. I love it. I think I just renewed my membership for like, or like it just billed me again for like the second or third year. Like I have been using it for quite some time. When I first got it, I think it was 2 years ago because I was at my parents' house. I used the thermometer that came with it. So basically, the way that a fertility tracking method works, and if I miss,
We're not doctors, but we're giving
I'm
a high level
like,
overview.
yes, I'm like, so please, if I misspeak, like someone can correct me in Spotify, but because I don't know all of the science, but essentially, you track your basal body temperature, which is your body temperature, like right when you wake up, is how you have to do it with natural cycles. So when you subscribe, they give you a little thermometer, and or you can use your own if you don't want to pay for the natural cycles one, but you have to take your temperature under your tongue, like literally the second you open your eyes, or it's not accurate. And so I did that when I first started, but then I found it just so, you know, when you like have an early flight and you're like, I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss it. And so you're like, your body wakes up like multiple times throughout the night. That was happening to me with the thermometer because I was so worried about missing it, or like getting my temperature inaccurately. So I ended up buying an Aura ring, and the Aura ring tracks my temperature and syncs with natural cycles. And honestly, I love it because it just happens in the background. So I don't have to worry, and it will update if I'm getting my period a little sooner or later based on my temperature, or and all the data obviously with the Aura ring is really nice. But I really love natural cycles. I think it's pretty robust in terms of like being able to also track, like I've talked about like the different pain that I have with the potential endometriosis. I track a lot of my like nerve pain or period pain, things like that in the app. So it's easier to be able to share that with my doctor. And I like that aspect of it too. I'm a fan. I think it's really worth it, to be honest.
Yeah, I love natural cycles so much, and I'm the same way. I use it with my Aura ring, and how I got onto it, it's been like 3.5 years at this point. I wanted to get off of hormonal birth control because it was literally turning me into a crazy person. Like all of a sudden, I was on hormonal birth control for 7 years, and then all of a sudden I was just super moody moody. Like I was crying and I couldn't figure out why I was crying all the time, just all the time. And I was like, okay, something's not adding up. So let me just like try getting off of the pill. And I just really liked how I felt not on the pill. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm not going to be on hormonal birth control, I want a way to track my cycle, prevent pregnancy, all of that. So I started with natural cycles probably in the summer of 2022, I believe, and I've been doing it ever since. But I will say, when I got off of hormonal birth control, I lost my period for like a year and a half. Like I did not get a period for a year and a half, which is crazy. So I don't think that I was the best at like keeping up with it and being consistent because I didn't even know what was going on. I was like, well, I'm not bleeding anyway. It doesn't matter. So I think consistently it's been about a year and a half that I've been really into it, like tracking my cycle every single day. The Aura Ring does it behind the scenes, and I can just kind of see like, yeah, what phase of my cycle I'm in. I love being able to track my symptoms as well. So you learn so much about your body between, hey, I start feeling bad 4 days before my period, or now I know it's cycle day 27. So maybe let's not schedule the yoga class for tomorrow morning because I know that I'm probably not going to feel the best tomorrow. And just things like that. I feel like I've learned so much about my body through tracking it and being consistent with it. But the biggest thing that I use it for is the pregnancy prevention. And you were right, Grace, like it tells you your body temperature overnight, and that's how it generally works. But what it's doing is it's telling you when you're ovulating. So it gives you red days and green days between like you're not fertile right now or you may potentially be fertile right now. So let's use some extra precaution. So yeah, I've been using it very consistently for about a year and a half, and I love it so much. I love not being on birth control.
Yeah, I agree. I love it. I also think too, I think they have some sort of like referral link for people who use it that gets other people a discount on it. So if you want the referral link, you can message me. I don't know. I don't think I get anything from it, but I think it gets you 20 or 30 bucks off. So like if you want to try it, but I think it's like $100 a year or something. So I know that's a deterrent for a lot of people, although I think it's well worth it. But you can DM me for my referral link or see if you have a friend who uses it. I would definitely try that if you want to try it, but save some money. Okay. Next question. I got this on my question sticker. I thought this one was so funny and so cute, but it says, would you ever bring on regular people to talk about how they build a life they love? And this question is so funny to me because it's so sweet and so like, yeah, like, I don't know, just so sweet. Here's the thing. It's funny. We are regular people.
We're very regular.
And like, what's so funny is, sometimes I feel like I'm reading this question and I'm like, when I read it, I was like, what does that mean? Because I think of myself as a regular person. Like I am, I don't know what do you mean by irregular, And I think
by irregular.
Yeah, like I was like, I don't know, but I think, and I get this question. I'm not like offended by it or anything like that. I think it's like really sweet. And I think I understand the intention of it, but like, I think sometimes a lot of people see us doing things that are maybe sometimes like non-traditional, or like being a 26-year-old who owns a business or who has grown my income or grown my net worth or saving money or like whatever. I understand that we've done a lot of extraordinary things as young people, but also I'm like, I am truly a very regular person who has just put myself in the position as much as I can to learn things and do things that have led me to do some extraordinary things. But I'm not like, I've always said this, I'm not a whiz kid. Like, it's not like I grew up being like, I don't know, like a mathematician, or like that I was like doing marketing from like when I was 7 years old. Like, I grew up in a very normal family, in a normal like neighborhood. Like there's nothing that was like, I was like, top of the class all the time. Like, I don't know. Like, yes, I've always been driven and, things like that, and stood out in those ways, but like, I'm a very normal person. I think that this question probably is just trying to get at like people who maybe like work a 9 to 5, or people who, maybe are 24, 23, 22, since I'm 26, or people who are in their 40s maybe. And, part of their idea of building a life they love is with their family. And so they're talking about that or whatever, and just people with different perspectives, which this is an open question. I'd love to hear people's responses in Spotify, but like, is that something you guys would want to see on the podcast? Because obviously we're limited in our perspectives and our careers are very similar. So we're speaking from similar places, when we're talking about entrepreneurship or content creation, things like that. Would you guys want to see people who are in totally different industries, different fields, maybe people who are not entrepreneurs, or like, would you want to see them on the podcast? And if so, what would you want to see? And how do we, what is considered regular and not regular? And how do we
what's the
gauge
threshold
that?
for regular?
Yeah,
because
like,
the way that a couple things here, the way that I took this question is that, so we were just talking in our episode last week, the one that just came out this week when we're recording this, our episode on comparison. We were talking in there about how it's really important to find mentors and people that you want to compare yourself to that are only a few steps ahead of where you are. Because if they're like 10 steps ahead of where you are, if you're making $50K and they're making $3 million, like that might be pretty overwhelming to you.
Yeah.
Which we are not making $3 million. We've said on the podcast before that our lifetime total in our 96 episodes of filming this is like $1,200. We make nothing from the podcast. But you like, it could be a situation where it's like, I want to hear from other people who may not be as far ahead as you are. And I do think like there's ways to, no matter who you're looking at, there's ways to kind of like dissect their starting point. Like, for example, you could go back on Grace and I's channels and look at when we had 0 followers, the videos that we were posting in our early days. Like, that's where we started. And we've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now, which is crazy. But like, all of those decisions and all of those actions do compound over time. And it got us to where we are today, to where, frankly, we have the time freedom to have a podcast that makes no money. Like, that is our biggest advantage right now, is like, a podcast is a long game. We do think that 10 years from now, we could be podcasting, making a lot of money from it, but you need to have the time freedom to be able to make that time investment. And we have that right now, which is a privilege. And it's something that we had to work toward over the last 4 or 5 years. So like Grace said, we definitely can look for people with different experiences if that's something that you guys are interested in. I know late 2024, we had a couple of episodes where we were kind of playing around with like a 6-figure side hustle series, where we were bringing people onto the podcast who had side hustles that generated over $100,000. One example of this episode that I really, really loved that you can go back and listen to is we brought on our friend Kate Robb, and she was talking about how she has made over 6 figures selling on Etsy. And she was just talking about Etsy and that process. And it's something that we literally know nothing about, but it's really worked for her. So that's something that we could potentially bring back, is like bringing on people who have been able to accomplish that 6-figure mark in a totally different industry than what we're in. So yeah, let us know on Spotify what you would like to see, who you would like to see, different industries, all of that, because I feel like that could be a good idea.
I agree. Okay, next question. This says, I've wanted to start my photography business for a long time now. Lately, I've had more of a desire to leave my full-time job. However, I'm scared to leave the comfort of making 6 figures in corporate. Any advice for pushing myself to get started? Don't leave your 6-figure job. Here's the thing, guys, okay? I feel like I talk about my freelancing or my story of getting into freelancing, where I just like full sended it. I was like, just graduated college, moved home. I said, I'm not going to apply for any full-time jobs. I'm just going to try to start a business. And I think that sometimes, and not saying this person was influenced by that, by me saying that, but just saying in general, I feel like that sometimes gives the idea that I think people should just like full send into a business with like no whatever. However, I do not believe that. I was freelancing 40 hours a week, and then I had a side hustle as an Instacart grocery delivery shopper and driver. So I was working 70 hours a week, and Instacart, I was making like anywhere from like 35 to 50 an hour before taxes, because this was like post-COVID era. So a lot of people still didn't want to go to the grocery store. And so I was able to make more, but I did that because I knew that freelancing was going to be unstable for a while. So until freelancing was a stable source of income, I kept that side hustle. Yes, I worked so much and it was really frustrating, but I honestly think that that's the path a lot of people should take, unless you have an emergency fund that can literally support your like living for like a year. And I don't think that's very realistic for a lot of people, especially if you're like in your 20s or 30s. Most people don't have a 1-year emergency fund. I think that we talk about this all the time in the podcast. There's a lot of value in committing to a strategic period of imbalance. And I think that starting a freelance business or a photography business, anything, I think is going to take a period of imbalance until you build a clientele and a name for yourself in your area and in the type of photography that you want to offer. I think it's worthwhile to work that 6-figure corporate job and do photography on the side of that, and maybe just focus on sunset shoots at night, or shoots on Saturdays and Sundays, shooting weddings Fridays, weddings Thursdays, things like that. It obviously depends on the kind of photography that you do, or keeping your studio shoots to Saturday, Sunday, and after work hours, until you have the business at a point where it's sustainable enough and steady enough for you to justify scaling back your corporate job. The other thing I will say too is, I have a friend who is a content creator and works a corporate role. And when she wanted to focus more on content, she actually was able to scale back her corporate job. And obviously, this will be so dependent on the company that you work for, but she was able to scale back. I think it was first to like 35 hours or 30 hours, something along those lines, and keep her benefits. And so that was like a good way for her to have some more time in her schedule while still making a high salary from that job. So that's something else to think about. I am not a supporter of like full sending it in and just hoping for the best. I think, especially in the job market we have currently and the way that the world is, I think like
Yeah, and
work a lot.
the data actually does not support quitting your job to like full sending it when you haven't even started yet. I was reading a book back in 2024 called The Originals, and I feel like I reference it a lot. It was a really good book. And it was basically talking about the originals being people who have like done great work and like built something from scratch and like become exceptional in whatever their field is, and talking about some of the characteristics of them. And in the book, it was saying how the studies and the data actually show that people who build something alongside of the comfort and stability of something like a full-time corporate job actually have better odds of success, because you're not in as big of a time crunch for it to work out. Like if you quit your job and you're like, well, I have $30,000 saved to grow my business but also sustain my living expenses, you're on such a bigger time crunch that you might not be able to think objectively and pivot and really like take the time that you need to build the product, the service, the business that you want to, because you're on a time crunch. But if you don't quit your job and you do photography on the side or whatever it is you want to get into, you do have the time to be like, okay, I was trying this thing, but it's actually not working out. And I know I need to pivot, but if I don't have the time to pivot and go down the lane that I actually know that I need to go down, like you're never going to get to where you need to go, is what I'm trying to say. In my situation, when I started doing content creation, I did have a full-time job. I had a full-time corporate audit job. And I did that for over a year and a half before I quit to become self-employed and just take on like some freelance roles here and there. So I really like eased myself into it. I made sure I was making more than my corporate salary from my side hustle before I quit my full-time corporate job. So I hope that gives just some like context on, it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like we do have a lot of time. Obviously, we don't know like this person's life situation. I don't know if they have children or a family or whatever it may be, but especially when you're young and in your 20s and single for the most part, like you do probably have some time that you could dedicate to a side hustle to get it off of the ground. And then the next one, and I guess the last question for this little Q&A episode is the best ways to find yourself slash reset in your 20s. And I really like this question. I don't know. I feel like we talk about this a lot on the podcast, just like obviously building a life that you love, a life that you truly love is the whole theme of the entire podcast. And like finding yourself and this concept of really like loving who you are and loving your life and genuinely like, yeah, being so obsessed with every single day is so important. And I feel like I'm finally getting to a place in my life where I'm like that. And I know so many people strive for that. So I have two tips here. Grace, I feel like you probably have some too. But the first one is spending more time alone. And this doesn't have to be anything like revolutionary, but just like spending more time in your thoughts and spending more time kind of like romanticizing those little moments in your day between like wake up, do your skincare, and go and like sit and read a book on your balcony, or go and like put a cute set of pajamas on and just like sit and journal for a second, drinking your cup of coffee, or go drive to a coffee shop and sit there and read a book, or turn the music down when you're driving your car for 30 minutes and just like sit there in your thoughts. I feel like spending time alone in my 20s has been so big for me, for really kind of like finding myself and finding what I actually enjoy. And then the second one, and this is definitely bigger than just finding yourself, quote unquote, but there's so much benefit to getting out of your comfort zone consistently. They say like everything good in life happens on the other side of your comfort zone, and I totally agree. for example, this podcast, I'm not an extrovert and I don't consider myself a good public speaker, but getting myself out of my comfort zone to start this podcast, and here we are 96 episodes later, has been so, so big for me. And it's opened up so many doors. I feel like I've gotten better at public speaking. I feel like I've gotten out of my comfort zone in so many ways. And I think forcing yourself to do that in a lot of different aspects of your life, both personally and also professionally, is going to be a really good way to kind of, just find yourself, find what you really like to do, find your hobbies and your interests, because no one's going to be able to find that for you.
I feel like this question is asking about like two things that are kind of separate in the way of like finding yourself and resetting your life. And I think I've done so much content around like resetting your life, because I feel like my life has been so chaotic this year. It's been like oddly like the worst year of my life, but also like somewhat of like the best year. It's kind of crazy. But I think like, and I feel like I've constantly just been like, okay, reset, let's reset. But I think like when I think of resetting your life, it's like, okay, a lot of things probably don't feel in alignment and you're trying to get alignment and reset, reorganize. I've talked about it before and it sounds really like dumb, but I do think it's really, really valuable, and it's doing a life audit. It really just forces you to look at the different aspects of your life and be like, what do I like about this? What do I not like? Like, what's going on here? And it forces you to rate those areas of your life objectively. So like on a scale of 1 to 10, what would I rate my career? And like, what does a 10 look like? And where am I at now? Okay, if a 10 looks like me, working 40 hours a week, and right now I'm working 60. Okay, what action steps can I realistically take to get my work schedule to be, to go from 60 to 40? Maybe as I look for a new job, maybe as I set some firmer boundaries with my boss, like maybe if you're an entrepreneur, it's I take Fridays off, whatever it might be. Like, and it forces you to walk through all the different aspects of your life. And I think that helps really, because it when you're just kind of like spiraling, you feel like you don't know who you are, your life's all over the place and you need to reset. It's really hard to look at things objectively because you're just overwhelmed by all the emotions that are coming up of like, my money is stressing me out, my career is stressing me out, I don't feel connected to community, da, da, da. You need to just like take a step to like look at things objectively and give yourself some concrete action steps. So I think that's really helpful in terms of the reset part of this. And then the best ways to find yourself. One of the things maybe this is controversial, or like maybe I'm just speaking from like my own experience. It's not controversial. I always say that, and I'm not saying controversial things like ever. It's literally just like
so afraid of hurting somebody's feelings.
I am, because guys, I don't want you to come to this podcast and feel attacked or like whatever. But sometimes I just need to give you harsh like advice. But I'm speaking from experience here, and so maybe some people will relate to this too. But I think oftentimes we do know who we are. We're just like, we feel bad about being that unapologetically, or we feel weird by it or whatever. And I think part of finding yourself and who you are is allowing yourself to just freely act on those desires that you have, like unashamed. For example, I love trying new things, and I don't think it's not that I used to care that people would think it's weird, like things that I like to do or try. Even y'all know, if you follow me on Instagram, I love pickleball and puzzles. Okay. And some people would think like puzzles are like, that's like a grandma thing. Or like I built a Lego set a couple months ago. That was so fun. And I learned like, I love building things. I love like using my hands and building things. That's fun to me. So I know I'm the type of person who enjoys that. That excites me. Or pickleball, like I've learned I love the process of getting better at something and learning like how to do something. That's enjoyable to me. But even like when I did like a 6-week little like, we called it a workcation. We worked and lived in California for 6 weeks, my friend and I. We went to the circus school in Santa Monica, and we did trapeze classes, which is a flying trapeze, like the circus person who flies through the air. That was so fun. And there was a part of me that was like, oh, like, are people going to think that's like weird that I'm like going to the circus school? And then we went to San Francisco for a few weeks after we stayed in LA. We went to the circus school there and learned how to juggle. I had so much fun learning how to juggle. And I just learned I enjoy doing random things, but I wouldn't have known, like I wouldn't have, and that allowed me to feel more, it allowed me to experience more joy and also be just like, yeah, I enjoy learning new things, but it took me acting on it and not letting the fear of what anybody else would think and actually just trying new things unashamed to learn more about myself, if that makes sense. And I think like, I don't know. I also think people always say to like go back to what you enjoyed when you were a kid. And I think to some degree, yes. And other, no, I used to love digging in the dirt when I was a kid. I don't want dirt under my nails. You know what I mean? I'm not doing that, whatever. But like, there's certain things that's just like, I don't know. Yeah, just try new things, be young. Like, and when
Yeah.
you're interested in something, take action on it. If you're like, you know what, I really want to try a dance class, go sign up for it. Do it. You're not going to know until you try, you know? And I
Yeah,
think
and
that'll help you find yourself.
I also think the getting out of your comfort zone goes really hand in hand with, maybe this is a hot take, but finding new friends. And I am not saying that you have to completely ditch your old friends. However, I do think that a lot of people in their 20s find themselves in a weird situation where they have a lot of friends from like high school and college, but they are afraid to sort of like morph into the version of themselves that they think that they want to be and like go after finding themselves, because their friends know them for a certain version of themselves and they're afraid that they won't like accept them for this new version of themselves. And I think that intentionally making an effort to find adult friends, again, not necessarily ditching your old friends, but just finding a new circle of people who can do new things with you, is going to get you out of your comfort zone. But it's also going to naturally lead you in the direction of finding people who are more aligned with this new version of yourself that you want to become. I think a really good example of this for me was when I started my TikTok account. I like didn't tell anyone in my personal life that I did it. I kind of just like started a new account and was trying to keep it secretive, but I ended up making so many friends from it. Like obviously Grace and I became friends from it. I have met the most aligned friendships literally ever from being a content creator, because I've met other content creators and other people who are interested in financial literacy and entrepreneurship and business and all of that. And I've made so many in-person friendships from that experience, but getting out of my comfort zone allowed me to do that. But yeah, I agree. Just like if there's something that you're interested in doing, just go do it. It's probably going to be uncomfortable. A couple of years ago, I signed up as a free agent to a basketball league, basically meaning like if a team needed another girl, they would just pick me up. And I just got picked up by a team and I walked in the first day and didn't know anyone. And then I played for 2 or 3 seasons and it was so fun. I used to love playing basketball as a kid. So I just wanted to do it. And I made some really great friends from it and had a lot of fun in the process. So yeah, I agree. Just make more of an effort to do new things and get out of your comfort zone and make some new friends in the process.
I agree. I have nothing left to add. I think that sums it up.
Yay. Well, this concludes our very first bonus monthly Q&A. We're really excited about doing these, so definitely leave all of your questions in Spotify because, like we said, we're going to release these on the last Friday of every single month. So when we get some juicy questions in Spotify, we'll film the next one and release it at the end of September. But thanks for tuning in. Leave all of your questions in Spotify, and until next Monday.